Hey, what's up guys? So here we are back again for some more Python BACnet stacks lessons, some mini challenges. If you're just joining us, we're still on week one. We'll kind of go through a little bit of the Python basics, which is just a super crash course for how to use Python a little bit, maybe get into some simple algorithms, and then deploy even like a little BACnet server, which would be like a BACnet device, and also make a CSV logging app. I think I'll preach this a whole bunch, but I would highly recommend, if you're new to Python, going above and beyond this. I took this one, which was awesome. It's probably like a full-blown computer science 101 course where you do actually dive way deeper into data structures and algorithms. So this is like the good stuff. Definitely take a course like this that dives into data structures and algorithms, even if it's just the easy ones. And then once you're beyond that, then you kind of branch off into computers or into data science or machine learning or advanced algorithms, which is actually machine learning. Can't get into that. And even like software app development, but this is kind of like the basics. And we're just kind of doing like a super applied version of this in this course. And our coursework is created by AI. So like all of our lessons that we'll do is created by ChatGPT in agent mode, which I think it did an okay job, but I've been kind of cleaning it up as we go. So we have installed Python. I'm on a Windows environment to look at the last couple of videos of how to get set up with VS Code, install the VS Code extensions, and then we're also using the BACnet discovery tool, which is one that I'm familiar with. I used this a lot when I was a field technician. It's free. You just have to fill out this little request thing, and then it lets you just download the executable. If we run it, it looks like, 1 second, I'm just trying to get to my other monitor. So this is what we were looking at yesterday. So when we ran this, you have to drill down and select the NIC card on your computer. And I happen to be on, this is my local area network. And then, which I showed you before, I'm running the fake BACnet devices on a Raspberry Pi. A couple of Raspberry Pis, actually. So these are all Raspberry Pis. I have like a fake VAV box, fake air handling unit. And this is also a fake building automation server that has a BACnet schedule point. So this is just fake data, kind of mimicking what like an air handling unit would look like in the real world, with the supply fan, speed command, heating output, cooling, damper, duct static pressure set point, supplier temperature reset, a writable network outside air temperature point. So this would, but behind the scenes here, this is just fake values. And we'll actually get into this more later on sections of the course, is how you can make these yourself, and then how to run them on a Raspberry Pi, or whatever kind of computer you want. And like we talked about yesterday, like when I'm running BACnet applications with BAC0 on my computer, on my Windows computer, you have to close out of your BACnet application that's already opened, because the operating system, doesn't matter which one it is, if it's Linux, Mac, or Windows, will only allow one BACnet application running at a time. And I think the reason is that BACnet, like the protocol by design, I might not be describing this very correctly, but like if you read the there's a specification on BACnet, how BACnet is to be programmed, or to be configured. And I think that BACnet is like an inbound and an outbound based protocol. So that's why the operating system needs one process, which is port 47808 in UDP, always open. So one process, whether it's Python or our BACnet scanning tool I just had open, the operating system locks open to that port, because BACnet is always listening for traffic on the wire, on the network. And it's not like, I think like MQTT or RESTful APIs, HTTP protocol, those are strictly outbound, like outbound networking requests. So you can have dozens of MQTT processes all working at the same time in a RESTful API, and the operating system doesn't care. But I think because BACnet is inbound, even to make an outbound read request, this opens up a full-blown inbound, app at the same time. At a high level, I think I'm describing that right, but I could be describing that wrong. But I think that's like all we really need to know about this. Okay, so this is our script from yesterday, and then if we did Python. Here's just our little script. So like what goes on behind the scenes with BAC0, it's actually starting a full-blown app. And this is what I think I'm talking about. Like when BAC0 starts, it's actually running a full inbound, like a full inbound protocol. Like if the operating system is listening to port whatever. So even though like our script just ran for like a second, like if we were doing a BACnet scan from a different computer, like we would see BAC0 pop up briefly on a BACnet scan tool. So that's what I mean by it. It's like inbound based, I think, how you could describe BACnet. So this is our script from yesterday. So we did a sensor present value request. How we do a sensor value equals an await, which is asynchronous Python programming, which is popular for network protocol stacks, IO bound, I think you would call it. So like it's not like a heavy number crunching process, like maybe like machine learning or heavy scientific computing or something that would be heavy CPU based, I think, processes. So networking is IO bound. So like we could run all these at once. The format would be a little bit different, and then we can just await for whichever value comes in first. Actually, would be like a really interesting thing for ChatGPT. I might actually see what ChatGPT says about this. I was actually asking ChatGPT a little bit earlier about data types. Okay, let's just say on this script, what would it look like if it was fully async with all these requests? I think I am running in a synchronous fashion, but what would fully async look like with async IO? I'm just curious to know this myself, because like async IO, like we could be making thousands of requests, all at the same time to many different BACnet devices if we had that all available, and they could all be, one device might be an MSTP device and respond really slowly, and one device could be BACnet IP and can respond a lot faster, so you can be asynchronously waiting for different requests to come in. And there's a way that you can program that in Python. This is getting a little bit more advanced than I thought of, but I was just kind of curious myself to see what it does. So ChatGPT rewrote our script a little bit. Okay, so it's using an async IO gather. That's really cool. This is neat. So and it's even putting an exception handling in it. So let's try this. All right, so not that this really matters for us, but This is just getting into kind of like how it formatted that a little bit more pretty. And then this is actually getting a little bit deeper into asynchronous programming. So don't worry too much about this. It gets kind of complicated, but it's basically just for network stacks that we can asynchronously be reading and writing, doing whatever we want to hundreds of devices or hundreds of points, and then you could do an async IO gather. So maybe we should kind of go off of this. And then this is like format safely for data types. I think, yeah, maybe we could just jump right into the lesson. Okay, so without getting too far off topic or too advanced in our lesson, so let's just cover numbers, Booleans, and comparisons. Dive deeper into Python numeric type, explore Boolean values and comparisons, Boolean logic. Python supports many different types of integer, floating point, float, and complex numbers. Integers have unlimited precision and floats have support of fractional values. Python also supports Boolean for true and false, which is an int class, which is a subclass of int. So which can be true or false. Anything non-zero or non-zero numeric is considered truthy. It's kind of interesting. I've never heard of that. Empty sequences, quotes, brackets, a set, which we'll probably talk about later, a range, and a loop, and the value of 0 are considered false. So a 1 is true and a 0 is false. Pretty common, I think, in most programming languages. Comparisons, less right, greater than, equal, double equals, and not equals. So this is like if so you would use a double if you want to say if the count equals 42, it's to check if it's true or not. And the not equals is the not. You can chain the comparisons, so how to use it. So create numbers, count, temperatures, my number is a string. So this is converting. So you can convert strings into an integer or a float. Compare values. So you have to convert the data type. And as we were doing here, like what we talked about earlier, we're just working with strings. And then somewhere behind the scenes in BAC0 and BAC pipes, they're actually converting this into numbers or whatever, to make a network request, which we don't have to get into any of that, which is kind of nice to make things easier. Check truthiness. If values directly in conditions, so this is just saying that's a list. If the list would contain a few numbers in there, then the list is not list is empty. Humidity and temperature. If the temperature is greater than 25 and humidity is greater than 50, you could print it's hot and humid. Many examples. So I might what I might do is actually put this code, simple read request, our fancy code there. So then our little math lesson looks a little more clean. So this is just playing around with some of the operators. And so it's kind of cool that ChatGPT, when it made this AI generated lesson, it kind of gave it like a little bit of an HVAC context. So let's say this is the temperature outside at 70, inside is 72, and outside is 85 in degrees Fahrenheit. If the outside is greater than the inside, it's warm. So this is a score. So this is like a Boolean logic statement. So like if 0 is greater than or equal to the score, which is assigned to 75, and less than or equal to 100, the score is within the range. So this is also Boolean logic. So this is just saying Well, this is interesting. What is this thing? So I never knew you could do this. So this is just saying Boolean logic with strings. I've never used this before. So like you can assign an empty string. So this is a string right here because it has two quotes, or you could use double quotes too. Doesn't matter. And then this is just saying that the Boolean print, so print true or false, and this will print false because the string is empty. Or here, this will print true because the string has some value in it. Never knew you could do that. So I'll probably learn a few things along the way in this course too. So micro exercise. Write an expression that evaluates true only if a number x is between 10 and 20 exclusively. So we can just say 10. I'm just going to cheat. Just say num. Do it like that. I'm just going to get rid of that. So because the number is 75 and it's in between here, that's not true. So we didn't print that. So we could even do, I think, else print num is not between range, not between the ranges. So the print statement took that condition. And I should probably stick to using the same single quotes just to make things consistent. So convert the string the float to a float and add 5 to it. Okay, so this is just let's see, we could say number as string equals that, and then we could say number as float equals float of the number as a string. Let's say number as a float plus 5 equals number as a float plus 5. And I think we could do, this gets a little bit long for like I wouldn't make a variable name that any longer than that. Best practices. So what's interesting is like we did mix data types here. So this would be an integer because it's a whole value. And if we wanted to make it a float, technically in Python you can just do this too. But I found that interesting. Sometimes like if you mix data types, it'll convert it to some data type you don't want potentially. And then other languages that are strictly typed, like if you get into C++ or Rust or C or Java, this would throw an error right here because you can't mix data types. But Python is kind of friendly, it doesn't care. Given two variables A and B, write a condition that prints equal when they have the same value and not equal. Okay, so A equals 5, B equals 6. Print A equals, how about A equals B? False. And how about A equals A. True. So you use the double to check if it's a Boolean, if it's equaling each other, and then the single equals is just an assignment. Evaluate the truthfulness following values. Okay, the truthfulness. I think we could do Boolean logic. Check truth. Maybe I'll just copy this. And what did it want for these guys? So then, like, double quotes. And like when we did extensions in Python, it automatically puts something in there. Truthfulness. All right, so if we put like that, the list is empty. We put something in the list. The list is this little data structure right here with the two square brackets, and then it's the list. The list is not empty, so we never printed that. I guess you could do the same thing with curly brackets, which we'll get into later. That's considered a dictionary. So let's try this. So same thing, doesn't matter what it is. The dictionary prints, and then same thing as a string, which I think you can consider that as a data structure as well. So put something into the data structure, voila. So that's why a string, even though like in my mind it's just a sentence in written English, like this is actually data in here. Like that's an IP address, that's our point type, so it's kind of important that we actually look into that. I think another thing worth mentioning, which is kind of nice in Python, is like you don't really have to get into BACnet supports like all these different primitive data types, but the BAC pipes and BAC0 running under the hood, they convert it to anything you see in Python world, which was what we talked about so far as strings, floats, and integers. That's all we have to worry about in Python, even in BACnet, because other coding languages, you might run into other data types for a double, a float, like a short float, a long float, a couple different numeric data types. And then same thing with BACnet. If you read the specification, there's primitive data types, character strings, a whole bunch of things. A long time ago in legacy BAC pipes and BAC0, you would have to deal with a numeric data type called a real number in BACnet, but they've kind of made things a little bit easier, so you don't even have to worry about that anymore. It's just all converted very conveniently to Python world, which I think is like what we should stick through in this course, because it's kind of entry level in my opinion. And then people that are familiar with our BACnet scanning tools, that's all we'll really have to worry about is kind of what you're familiar with and what you see in the building automation system and in typical BACnet deployments. So I think that's all I'm going to do on this one. Maybe with this script, we'll get into playing around with reading a write. So like we could build onto this in the future. Instead of these reads right there, we could do maybe tomorrow would be fun to build onto this. We can even do with AI. So how to do on the script, how to build off of some of this lesson on the Boolean operators. So maybe we can cheat a little bit. So this is kind of where the power of AI is kind of nice. So we studied just a little bit of the theory in Python. Like we're just kind of studying a little bit of theory, how to use it, and then we can ask AI to do something cool, and let's apply it to something HVAC-ish, which is the fun stuff. So this is the fun stuff. So yeah, cool. So this is where we would get into this in the real world, is like, here's a high alarm, a low alarm. So in building automation, like we would set up alarms, basically. You could do this all in Python. Like you could make an app that is occasionally checking the sensor values, just like the Jace will, or the building automation system. And then if it's out of range, your app could it could dial out, it could send an email, you can literally do anything in Python. It's way more powerful than anything you could in a building automation system. You could do machine learning, whatever you want to do. Your creativity is your limit. So if we get into here, so this looks kind of fun. Ooh, no, this is our simple read request. Bad metadata or invalid reading. What did it do? Alrighty, so what does it say? Analog input to? I think we might want a 1 here. I'm just guessing. And we have an error. So this is how we can feed stuff back into ChatGPT. And even do a little bit of vibe coding here, getting a little bit out of our neck of the woods, but like off the lesson plan. But I think this is what we should be doing, is like we should be studying theory. Hopefully you do something full-blown like the edX course, and then have fun once you kind of understand the theory going on here. So if you look at ChatGPT, so it looks like something's going on under the hood. What's BAC0? Ping equals false. BAC0 must have some feature. I might just copy this line right here. Let's see, so maybe I can just tab this over, which will kind of get into that. Let's see what this does. Ooh, there we go. Okay, so, and then this is all of our logs. So our script is already getting kind of fancy with the help of AI. Sometimes AI can make things really complicated. So, gosh, I wonder if it's too early to get into functions. Maybe we'll stop here for today, but it's kind of a cool script. So we're doing a lot of really advanced, fancy things already. So we have high and low limit. We're doing a read request, and we're gathering 3 different things from the read request: the present value, the description, the units. And then we're doing an async IO gather on asynchronously requesting this data, which isn't doing anything. But if you were doing hundreds of points, it could. Then a little bit of logic here with our if statements. We're checking to see if it's a float or an int for our sensor value. And then AI added in this little condition here, which is pretty cool. And then voila, here we go. So we're actually building a little app. Maybe this would be kind of fun to even do like a Gmail SMTP server, like what you do on the Jace. If alarm needs to dial out and notify someone, we could do that all here too. So it's kind of fun. I love this stuff. So thank you for following along, and I know it's probably getting a little advanced already, but hopefully you're able to just have some fun with this and start easy, and we'll start doing some more advanced stuff soon. So thanks for following along.